This is the place to be.
Yeah. This is the place to be. Yeah. Innovation Days.
This is Morten from Inkish. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I have the pleasure of now talking to Colin from a very interesting software company called Dalim. And when I say it this way, I must say that it's just a few months back I got an in-depth introduction to Dalim, and I was blown away, to be honest, about all the things they can do. And I'm sure that, first of all, I think that Colin and I will have a good chat, but this is also an opportunity for you to plan and come and see them at Hunkeler Innovationdays, because that is the reason why we're here. So welcome on English, Colin.
Oh, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
I was just wondering, I mean, it seems that the portfolio of services that Dalim offers is so vast that, I mean, can you keep up on all the things you do yourself, or you have to look up in the dictionary from time to time?
No, I think it's something that a lot of experience brings. I've been in the industry a long time. I like to think it's kind of given me a broad knowledge of a lot of areas, but with regard to Hunkeler, we're here with specifically our print expertise. A little bit about Dalim. It's actually our 40th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And 35 of those years has been in digital workflow automation. So I think probably, I can't think of any other company that's been doing that for this long.
I think the only one that I can think of that is maybe close is maybe Ultimate Technographics or Ultimate Tech today, because they also, but maybe it's only 25 years to 20. But that's also one of the companies that have age and experience like good red wine, right? Getting better and better, right?
Absolutely, and they're a great company. I remember back when they started, it was just purely imposition.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is workflow automation, automating all the steps of workflow. We've been doing that 35 years. So I can think of maybe 50 plus workflows that have come and gone in the same period of time, along with some companies. But
Colin, so if you look at these, let's say, track records here, what is the I don't know if you want to share it online, but maybe you have to, because I'm asking you now, what is the secret sauce here? I mean, why are you so successful and yet going strong and inventing new things? That is pretty cool.
I think it's staying relevant because print, as you know, has changed amazingly over the last 35 years. And once upon a time, printers didn't do the workflow, repro houses did, and then the printers did it themselves. So there's been a lot of transition, a lot of changes over the years, and the needs have changed. And so really just adapting our solution to be relevant all the time. And actually, this comes to Hunkeler again, because we went last time, for the first time, to Hunkeler because of a new technology we brought for the new breed of high-speed inkjet machines, because they need a different kind of, they have different needs in terms of workflow compared with all the other print sectors. So that's
why you go there. And what was that solution that you showed at that time, and that was like changing the scene for Dalim and for the industry?
Well, last Hunkeler we showed a product called Dalim Drive, and we're here again with it. It's progressed another 2 years on. So Dalim Drive is kind of like workflow on steroids, because these machines now, they're printing at crazy speeds, 30, 40, 50 pages per second, and you need to make sure they're not going to stop. You need to make sure that when you feed those presses with pages or ups if it's packaging. You need to be sure they're not going to cause a problem on press. And there are no workflows, or there were no workflows that could normalize files at 50 pages per second. So we had to...
Sorry, and when you talk about normalizing, does that mean that like ensuring that the leftover data is not ripped and make sure that you have, let's say, fonts installed and these kind of normalizing things, or is it something more technical? Or?
Well, normalizing is just one of the things we do. So with our Drive solution, one thing we're showing this time is that we can do lots of things in Drive, and the concept of Drive is that it can scale to be as fast as you want, and it will scale back down again as well if you're quiet. So it will deliver at the speed you need.
And that delivery, is that based on, let's say, that you can rent CPU power as you need it for different tasks, or is it just to make sure that you utilize the CPUs and the memory as good as possible, or what does it imply?
It's a whole new architecture for software. So if you look at software, most software around is what we call monolithic. So it's one application which you can scale, as you said, on the CPUs you have available. We kind of threw that model out because it's not scalable. It's only scalable to a point. So we had to reinvent how our software was architected. It's like if you live in a house for 50 years, you can decorate it every 10 years. You can build an extension, but in the end, you've got to knock it down and build it again, or build a new house. So we had to re-architect our software so that it was infinitely scalable. And we did that using microservices. And software that's scalable is one thing, but then you have to put it in a container that is also scalable. And these days in our cloud computing, you can have containers that also scale, software that scales within it, and most importantly, and this is one of our USPs, is licensing that scales.
So basically, every time, let's say that you are a small company that will have a relatively small volume of data, and then 2 times a year you have a total peak season. Then instead of investing in the peak, you can basically scale as you come and go, basically.
Yes, and a good example is in web to print companies who are also inkjet users. They scale on the way files are delivered to them. So they might have one person uploading a file, but there could be 1,000. And just because there's 1,000, that one person shouldn't wait longer. Because a key metric in web to print is how long before they see a preview back. That's a key thing, because they might just close the window and go somewhere else.
Yeah. So this is also a matter of parallelizing, make parallel, English word.
Yes.
Parallel processing, and make sure that you can basically have those streams processed. So also the user experience is improved, even though it was intended to maybe be mainly the back end, but the side effect is that the front end is much better.
So we'll also be showing for a web to print company how our engine, our drive can sit behind their website, and whether it's 1,000 people or one person uploading a file, the time should be the same, because we'll be scaling up to address the need. No one customer suffering. It's going to be fast, whoever, but you don't have to provision all that CPU there. Just because there may be 1,000. So it's a different way of addressing it, and scaling down is also important for saving power and energy. So it's win all round, really.
And I mean you're talking to a layman here, so I have no ideas how you do it, but is it difficult?
Yeah, look, it's not me either. I don't fully understand the technique. We're a software company, right? We've got some kind of geeky people with us who know this stuff, and they explain it to me. You never bring them out, right? They just lock behind bars and work for you. Well, we're going to have one at Hunkeler. So,
Okay, that would be exciting, right?
well, I think actually it's an interesting point because in print, used to be people learned to use a Mac. People used, they learned to use a computer. And a lot of the guys running all the workflows, even now, but historically, has been ordinary guys who've learned to use the software. Nowadays, there's a new breed of expertise needed in running these digital machines. You have to be, more and more our customers are CTOs or, technical people who've come into print and they don't necessarily know what some of the terms are, what imposition is, etc. They just learn that bit. But it's the technology that is the underlying power, really.
But that is also, a huge advantage because, basically, I remember when I was a kid, I used the Commodore 64, as so many of us did, right? And the things I could program in Comal or in Simple Basic was like, that was good enough for keeping track on your cassette decks and your albums, right? But today, when you look at when I tell my kid that my computer at that time had 39 kilobytes of memory, right? They were just like, that is like, and today we talk, in the printing company, we move terabytes of data, the visual data, the production data, the financial data, the job ticket data. It is so vast, and therefore I think it's a pretty solid argument that you are not just depending on old pre-press people, but that you have real programmers that are good at math and understanding architectures, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a technical business these days, and
does that make it difficult to explain to laymen? Because I'm often, when I ask, when I talk to people in the software part of our industry, it's like, they bring more and more features into applications, and I know that they also often work on making the user interfaces easier and easier to use. But I'm just still thinking from a communications perspective, often it must be a challenge to basically grasp the entire scope of a piece of software, right? And it's just like it becomes more and more complex communication task, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And but that's why Hunkeler's interesting for us, because you've got the right kind of people going. And this is part of what we do. We also do a lot of stuff with user interfaces upstream for brands, for agencies who are preparing all this stuff that's going to end up being printed. But on the print side, yeah, it's definitely a more technical business now, and you only have to look at those machines running and think, it's like, I live in Stratford-on-Avon, home of Shakespeare, and if you're just throwing files at a press and you don't know if they're going to work, it's a bit like doing the first opening night of a play, never having rehearsed anything, and expecting all the actors to just perform perfectly and give a great performance. It's not going to work. So you have to prepare before you feed those machines, and that's where we help. We like to think we help.
So if we look a little bit about the trends that and maybe you and I, we're maybe not tech savvy enough to actually discuss this, but I will try anyway. Some of the trends that you hear is, of course, about the cloud computing and, operating in the cloud. That is like one thing. Another thing is APIs, being able to communicating also with other kind of platforms and softwares, and also allowing the CTOs to sometimes make their own programming and interface with the software that they buy. These, let's say, these two buzzwords, is that something that resonates with Dalim, or?
Absolutely. In fact, I described our new Mac architecture. The A in Mac stands for API first. So every single tool within our whole suite of software is accessible via an API. So the more technical companies can just integrate our tools into everything else they have as part of their normal platform, as they call it these days. We have another example, again, Hunkeler relevant, where we have an in-position API now, which we'll be showing at Hunkeler. So with a single API call, you can tell our API where the jobs are, what the width is, the web width, and how many lanes you want it to split those jobs across. And we will then, in seconds, return the fully imposed PDFs split in lanes. And I know you're familiar with the lanes philosophy, because I think I saw you in a video in a Dutch company.
Photo, either it was a photo fabric or it was like this formerly owned. Okay, yeah, but I know the lanes. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one of your videos. So anyway, so we have a customer who's using this to drive an HP. These machines are getting wider and wider as well. So the ability to have multiple jobs in the same print run is very powerful in terms of saving paper and saving time and energy. So the particular customer I have in mind saves 4 kilometers of paper per day by printing in lanes.
Wow, that's amazing.
So they print 3 or 4 across a lane, and they have slitters on the end, so the finishing can continue. But just by ganging up across the lanes, and we can do that in seconds with our in-position API. And also, if you have 3 already imposed jobs, we have an API that can just put them together so they can be running lanes on a press. So we'll be showing that actually.
Sounds great. Colin, just returning a little bit to the 2 buzzwords I was pointing at. I think it was great examples you gave here, but 10, 15 years ago, it was not seen as something positive to be cloud-based, right? People were a little bit afraid of having data not on premises, and a lot of people maybe see APIs as some kind of buzzword, but does not really understand what it means. But today, do you see that as strong KPIs for investing in, for example, Dalim Software, that you have, let's say, these open architectures towards the world, and that you have these examples of being very innovative? Because again, the reason I'm asking is just because, if you look at the software in the market, there's a lot, but there's some players in the market, and I think there's a little bit overlap between some of them, right? And of course, you then have to make the choice of working with the one that serves you best. But that can be difficult.
Exactly.
That can be difficult to find. That's why I'm asking. Right?
Well, I think the API is a must. Everyone has to have an API. It used to be people used to charge for their API. No one does that these days.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, is that the right time frame for JDF? JDF was kind of the former API in some crude form, in print anyway, where everyone said, well, let's have these files firing back and forth and JMF messaging files, and things have moved on from JDF, and API has taken over, where you can directly talk, your software can directly talk with other software and vice versa. It's progressed, and cloud as well. I think printers are more accepting of cloud solutions these days. 10, 15 years ago, probably you wouldn't get anyone to do it because they're protective over having the stuff by the press or by their CTP. What if it all goes wrong? Mentality. Yeah. But nowadays it's pretty much, it's robust and actually more secure.
So, Dalim Software, going to Innovationdays, having some great examples of what you provide to your customers in the market. Where do you position yourself? Are you like for everybody, or is there a particular niche that you find more interesting?
Well, anyone with a high-speed inkjet press should take a look at us. that's why Hunkeler is great
Such
for us
a
to
really
go.
good space to be in, right?
Yeah. Often those guys are more technical in terms of driving those machines, and I mean, we're probably less relevant to a small, printing company with one press and a CTP, and they're just moving into a sheet-fed digital machine. Although we do have a lovely workflow engine which could feed those, but our target for Hunkeler is the industrial, because that's where our scalability shines.
Yeah, and I mean that also shows off that the development you have done with Drive and re-architecturing for the speed and for the, let's say, this scalability really makes sense, because I think that, let's say printing companies that invest in 2, 3, 4 inkjet presses obviously have also both peak hours and on non-peak hours, and therefore the scalability is probably a very, very valid argument, right?
Absolutely, and people like book printers, their books are going high-speed inkjet. Transactional has been inkjet for years, and we have workflows that can compare. They can make sure files are correct by processing them twice through two different ways and looking for visual differences and stopping it if there's a visual difference. We have workflows for. We'll be showing Scodix is there, digital embellishment is at Hunkeler, and we have a workflow which we made, which will automatically make the Scodix separations from a job and feed it to the Scodix alongside the files going to the press. One key thing I missed mentioning, which is a key thing, is that on the licensing side, Dalim we've always had our own interpreter within our software. So it started off as a PostScript interpreter. Of course, now it's PDF interpreter. For 35 years, we've maintained that. And what it means is that we're not going to somewhere else to buy our interpreter and licensing it from them to then build into our product. So this gives us the freedom to scale it off our own decision. So we don't have to go and license off Adobe 1,000 interpreters if we want to scale to 1,000 concurrent processes. We do work with Adobe as well, but a lot of our core competence and USP is through that flexibility of having our own code for our own interpreter. And we're on the Ghent Work Group and the PDF Association, have been all the time. So it's a very powerful mix.
That makes total sense. Question here: who should you talk to? I mean, is it the pre-press guys, or the money guys, or the technical guys? Who should you talk to in order to get orders?
There's always the money guy for an order. But you have to
He's just signing the checks.
Right.
I'm just asking the arguments because I'm asking because I think it's interesting that a lot of technology requirements comes from the production people when it comes to presses and binding equipment, but often it is the CTO and that drives maybe a little bit on the software side, but they should of course work together because it's an important part of it. But who are you for the most speaking to?
Good question. If there's a CTO, it's a good sign for us.
Then they talk the same language at least, right?
We also speak repro, pre-press language. Whether it depends. Each company is different, right? You have different people who are making the decisions. Sometimes in print, it's the MD who makes all the decisions. In a bigger group, if there's a CTO, it's good because it means they'll be objective. I think with the scaling side of things, a lot of printers think we can do everything we want. So I'll just buy that machine and our workflow can drive that machine no problem because it does all the things we need. And normally when you buy a machine, you get a DFE with the machine, and people assume, well, that's going to be fine then. I just put, but then you start to realize you're talking pages per second being right, not 8 pages every 2 minutes for a plate. It's a totally different thing, and it could be a wasted investment if you buy this press. They're millions, and then you find it's sitting there pre-processing loads of work. Well, it's actually printing faster than it can process the files.
I can tell you now, I remember, I think you were talking about the film we did from Al Belly, and it was the story where the Phoenix was the driver, because basically it was the first HP Indigo 50,000 in Europe, and that they were not able to process the files fast enough themselves, and also having that lane in position. And I would just remember it now, because that was actually, as you say, that sometimes you see Tilia Labs, and you see that basically you see that you have hardware that is maybe very good for making a lot of the same sheets, same design, same thing like that. But the moment you go into photo book market, where you have different sizes and different, let's say, also qualities of photos, then you need a little bit more horsepower. And I guess that's also that what you have experienced, that you from time to time, when you see these high-speed printers, that they have maybe focused. I'm not saying that they have not focused on the DFEs and the processing thing, but I'm just saying that sometimes reality take a step further than even engineers sometimes think when they start developing a printer, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago, right?
Absolutely, and that's a good example of what I was saying, really. And I think they became part of ESCO now, didn't they? Tilia. So, so we have our imposition can do what they're doing there, probably quite a bit faster than 5 years ago, 6 years ago when they were doing it. But that's the nature of things. But printers, if they're used to printing static page sheets, which is what most printers are, with, if they're litho printers, they're making plates, nothing changes on every sheet. And they buy a digital machine, and some printers buy a digital machine and carry on doing the same thing on every sheet. But the real power of digital is the possibility that every sheet can be totally different. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of value that can add into the mix if that is the case. Mm-hmm. Every sheet's another job, really, potentially.
I mean, that is like one of these megatrends that you see in all industries, that if you profitably can produce products of one, or as we also say in this industry, if you have the mass customization as part of your business models, then the world, it changes perspective quite a lot, right? I was with an Italian printing company 2 weeks ago that have developed their own book solution. And it was kind of interesting, because the reason why they did this is basically because they want to address the book market. And if you think of the book market, it is a growing market, but the real growth comes from the backlogs, where you need to basically print books of one, because you will never print 500 copies of a book that sells 3 a year, right?
Exactly. Historically in books, there's been warehouses of books in between the printer, the producer, publisher, and the customer. And customers have had to order 1,000 and see if they sell.
So for Dalim, you can say that this market opportunity is super interesting, because now with even better and even faster inkjet presses, the need for software that can handle even more data faster is simply, I would say, just the tip of the iceberg right now. Because if we think of more and more offset printers being converted into digital printers, it's probably a good time for you to be around, right?
Well, I hope so. I think so as well. And we look forward to getting feedback from people when we speak to them at Hunkeler, and that kind of. We've always been listening to customers to modify what we have so it's always relevant, and that's probably how we're still here.
I'm pretty sure about that. Colin, it was wonderful talking to you, and I look forward to see you and your team, even the programmer that has been let out in Lucerne, and I'm sure we will have some good days there, and I'm also sure that there will be a lot of exchange of ideas and see technology that is like this wow factor. And as I said,
I can't wait.
No, I was there a few days ago, and I can tell you that when you come and see that not empty halls anymore, but where you see the trucks coming in and offloading the machines, and you have the boot places where all the software guys will be, and you start to feel the buzz. That's really nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to get out there actually. Maybe look forward to having a beer with you.
I hope so. That would be nice. Colin, thank you very much, and we'll definitely see each other in 2 weeks, right?
Thanks, Martin. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.